Go find another table. This one's for family, not adopted girls. The words cut through the hum of clinking glasses and soft jazz like a blade. My sister Victoria's voice carried across the elegant dining room of Seattle's most exclusive restaurant. Heads turned. My cheeks burned. Laughter followed my parents, my brother Daniel, even Victoria's smug husband, all chuckling like it was the funniest joke they'd ever heard. Except it wasn't a joke. It was a reminder. A reminder I'd heard in different forms for 23 years. You don't belong. You never did. My name is Rachel, and I'm 28 years old. I was adopted into this family when I was 5, and for 23 years, I've lived with their constant reminders that I was different, that I was less. I stood there, clutching my purse, while the chandeliers sparkled overhead and every stranger in the room stared at me. The white tablecloths glowed under golden light, the crystal glasses catching reflections, but all I felt was the ice in my veins. "Victoria, that's enough," I whispered, trying to salvage an ounce of dignity. "Oh, don't be so sensitive." My mother, Patricia, waved her hand, manicured nails flashing in the light. "You know how your sister jokes." I knew. Victoria had perfected the art of cruelty disguised as humor. At 33, she'd always been the family's crown jewel. The best clothes, the expensive schools, the endless praise for mediocrity. Meanwhile, I got hand-me-downs, student loans, and criticism, even for success. "Sit down, Rachel," my father Gregory snapped, his voice like steel. "You're making a scene." So Saturday, swallowing down the fury, the humiliation, the ache in my throat. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration of Victoria's latest achievement, a real estate deal financed almost entirely by my parents. They always invested in her. When I once begged for a small loan to start my design business, they laughed in my face. Dinner dragged on. Conversation flowed around me, never to me. Victoria bragged about her new Tesla. Daniel boasted about his promotion. My parents beamed, soaking up their success stories. And me? When I tried to mention the major client I'd just signed a contract worth $60,000, my mother cut me off with a dismissive, "That's nice, dear. Now, Daniel, tell us more about your bonus." I shrank into myself, that familiar numbness crawling in. My role was clear: the outsider, the charity case, the family's permanent reminder of their own generosity. Then dessert came, and with it, the blow that shattered everything. A waiter approached, leather folder in hand. But instead of giving it to my father as he always did, he placed it directly in front of me. My heart skipped. "I think you've made a mistake," I told him, confused. Victoria's laugh rang sharp, like glass breaking. "Oh, didn't we tell you? You're paying tonight." I froze. "What?" "Consider it your contribution to the family," she said sweetly, "since you're always taking and never giving." Taking? The word ripped out of me, strangled. "I've never asked you for." "The roof over your head," Patricia interrupted, ticking off with her fingers. "Food, clothes, school. We gave you everything, Rachel. The least you can do is buy dinner." My hand shook as I opened the folder, and my blood ran cold. $3,270. They hadn't held back. The most expensive wines, lobster, steaks, towers of appetizers, even a $200 caviar platter Victoria ordered just to try. Daniel had indulged in 3 different desserts for fun. "I can't afford this," I whispered, panic surging in my chest. "Of course you can," Victoria smirked. "Didn't you just say you landed a $60,000 client? This is nothing to you now." Except it wasn't nothing. That contract was 6 months of work, barely covering my business expenses, my rent, my student debt. Paying this bill would wipe me out completely. I wanted to scream, to throw the bill back in her face, to stand up and finally tell them all what monsters they were. But my father's glare pinned me to the seat. My mother's sigh echoed in my ears. "Don't make a scene, Rachel. Don't embarrass us." So I did what I always did. I pulled out my credit card with trembling fingers, handed it to the waiter, and forced my face into a mask of calm while my soul collapsed inside. The waiter returned. I signed the slip, my vision blurring. $3,270 gone in an instant. Gone to buy the privilege of being humiliated by the people who were supposed to love me. That was lovely, Patricia said, dabbing her lips. Same time next month? Next month. Sit down. Even the maitre d' flinched. My grandmother's voice, cool, resonant, unmistakably in charge, cut through Belmont's like a conductor's baton. Patricia's mouth snapped shut. Gregory straightened. Victoria rolled her eyes but obeyed. Daniel slid his phone face down. Dorothy Hayes didn't raise her voice. She never needed to. At 78, in a silver suit that matched her hair, she radiated the kind of authority money can't buy and time can't dull. She rested one steady hand on the back of my chair. I've watched this family, she said, each word precise, turn cruelty into a parlor game. Tonight, you made Rachel pay to be humiliated. On camera, in a public room, with my name on the reservation. Silence rippled out. Nearby tables pretended not to listen. Phones paused midair. Mother, please, Patricia attempted, smile tight. It was a joke. Dorothy's look iced her mid-sentence. A joke is funny to everyone. Cruelty is only funny to the cruel. She tilted her head toward the leather folder by my elbow. How much? My throat worked. 3,270. Dorothy clicked her tongue once. Manager, please. The manager materialized like he'd been waiting for his cue. Dorothy didn't ask. She directed. Split tonight's bill evenly among these four, she gestured to Patricia, Gregory, Victoria, and Daniel. And run miss. Rachel's card for $1 so the paper trail shows she paid exactly her share. The water she drank because her appetite died with your laughter. The manager nodded so hard I thought his head might fall off. Within seconds, the receipt reprinted. $1 under my name, the rest rerouted to the people still frozen in shock. Victoria's eyes flashed. Gregory's jaw flexed. Patricia's cheeks blotched crimson. Mother, you can't just... I can, Dorothy said softly, and I did. She moved to the head of the table, fingers resting on the chair back like a gavel. Now, listen carefully. I'm 78. I've spent the past few months thinking about legacy, what survives us when the flowers are gone and the platitudes stop. The current will, she let the word hang, was written years ago. It assumed my daughter knew how to be a mother, my grandchildren knew how to be siblings, and my son-in-law knew how to be a man. A tremor coursed through Patricia's practiced smile. You're being dramatic. Dorothy's eyes hardened. I'm being accurate. She drew an envelope from her clutch, thick, cream paper stamped with a law firm seal. Yesterday, I executed a new will. It transfers my entire estate liquid assets, properties, controlling shares into a trust with one beneficiary. 4 pairs of eyes went razor sharp, knives without handles. Rachel, Dorothy said, every dollar, every deed, every vote. The table detonated. You can't! Victoria exploded, half rising, bracelets clattering. She's not even... Finish that sentence and you will leave this restaurant escorted, Dorothy warned, her voice now diamond. Blood is not a credential, character is. Gregory leaned forward, voice low and dangerous. Dorothy, think. This will be a scandal. The board, the press. Already handled, Dorothy replied. Psychological evaluations confirming my capacity, affidavits, video testimony. If anyone contests, we litigate in daylight. She lifted her chin toward me. She will not be your shadow anymore. The room's hum had died to reverent quiet. Even the jazz seemed to hold its breath. Daniel's fork slid off his plate with a soft, humiliating ping. Patricia tried one last time, breath hitching into tears. Mother, you're punishing me to make a point. Dorothy's gaze didn't waver. No, I'm protecting Rachel to make a future. She shifted, and for the first time I saw the effort it cost her to stand so straight. I've watched you starve a child of warmth and then mock her hunger. Enough. Victoria's laugh turned brittle. This is a stunt. We'll contest. We'll win. And when we do, she's paying our legal fees. She jabbed a manicured finger at me, venom bright. You think you've won because you cried pretty at dinner? Dorothy placed the envelope beside my plate. Open it, she told me. Inside lay a simple card and a key fob engraved D.H. Foundation Admin. On the card, 4 lines in Dorothy's looping hand. Immediate access accounts activated at 9 a.m. Thomas will collect you at 8. You will not go back to that apartment tonight. And there's one more thing you need to know about your adoption. My fingers tightened around the card. What? One more thing? Dorothy's eyes softened briefly, a flicker of sorrow through steel. We'll speak in the morning. Not here. Not with people who turned your pain into entertainment. She turned to the manager again. Have security escort Miss Rachel to the car, discreetly, and send the remainder of the bill to their cards. Victoria lunged for the envelope. Dorothy's hand moved faster. Old reflexes forged in boardrooms. The maitre d' stepped between them. Ma'am, please. I stood. The room tilted, then steadied under Dorothy's palm on my shoulder. She leaned close, voice for me alone. Hold your head up when you walk, Rachel. People will say you got everything tonight. Let them. You and I know what was already yours that they could never give. Your worth. I nodded, blinking hard. As I turned to go, Patricia's voice followed me small, almost pleading. Rachel, you wouldn't let a stranger take what belongs to family, would you? I paused, looked back at the table that had always felt like a stage I wasn't allowed to stand on. A stranger didn't take anything, I said, steady now. A stranger finally gave it back. Outside, the night air was cold and clean. Thomas, Dorothy's driver, held the car door. I slid in, the envelope clutched to my chest, the key fob heavy in my palm. My phone buzzed unknown number. Midnight, check your email. Subject, what they never told you. The screen dimmed. My heart didn't. The car hummed softly through Seattle's night, headlights streaking against the drizzle. I held the envelope tight, its weight heavier than the fortune it implied. Dorothy sat beside me, silent, her profile etched in steel against the city lights. When we pulled up to her estate, a sprawling lakefront mansion I'd only ever seen from a distance, Thomas guided me inside. The marble floors glistened, portraits of ancestors lining the halls. But Dorothy led me not to a bedroom, not to a parlor, but to her study. Sit, she said. I obeyed. She opened a drawer, pulled out a thick file, and slid it across the desk. This, she said quietly, is what they never told you. My hands shook as I flipped it open. Bank transfers, legal documents, records from 23 years ago. At the top, a trust account in my name. Balance, $750,000. My breath caught. What is this? It's what your birth parents left you, Dorothy said. Her voice was even, but her eyes flickered with rage. When Patricia and Gregory adopted you, they received that money to ensure your care, your education, your future. It was supposed to be sacred, untouchable. I skimmed the records, my stomach turning. Tuition checks for Victoria's private school, a down payment on Daniel's first car, vacations to Europe, designer clothing charges. The trust bled dry by the time I turned 10. My voice cracked. They spent it all. On them. Dorothy nodded once. And left you with scraps. The memory of secondhand jeans, of scraping through community college on loans while Daniel partied at a fraternity, crashed over me. All those years they told me they couldn't afford to help me. They were lying. Yes, Dorothy said simply. They stole from you, Rachel. And then had the audacity to frame you as a burden? The room tilted. My body shook with anger so hot it tasted metallic in my mouth. Why didn't you tell me before? I whispered. Because, Dorothy said, leaning forward, I needed proof, paper trails, witnesses, a case they can't bury, and because I knew that once you saw this truth, you could never unsee it. You'd never look at them the same again. Tears blurred the numbers on the page. Not only had they mocked me, starved me of affection, they had robbed me. Tomorrow morning, Dorothy continued, Walter, my attorney will meet you here. We'll file a civil suit. With interest, they owe you over $2.3 million. And the new trust I've created ensures they will never touch another dollar of mine. The words hit like thunder. $2.3 million. Justice. A lifeline disguised as vengeance. My phone buzzed. A new email notification. Subject, What they never told you. Hands trembling, I opened it. Screenshots of the same records Dorothy had just shown me sent from an anonymous address. Then a final line. You don't know half of it. Trust no one in that house. I stiffened. Dorothy, who else knows about this? Her eyes narrowed. No one outside Walter, Thomas, and myself. Why? I showed her the phone. She studied the message, her mouth a thin line. Then someone is watching, closer than I thought. A shiver ran through me. Someone out there, someone who knew enough to confirm Dorothy's evidence, was trying to wedge doubt between us. Dorothy's voice snapped me back. Rachel, listen to me. Tomorrow, you speak to Walter. You prepare for battle, and you keep that email. It may be bait, but it may also be a breadcrumb. I nodded, though my pulse thundered. That night, lying in a bed softer than any I'd ever slept in, I couldn't close my eyes. The chandelier shadows looked like claws on the ceiling. My phone buzzed again at 2 a.m. A text this time, from an unknown number. They'll call you ungrateful tomorrow. Don't flinch. They know what they did. I sat up, heart racing. Someone was feeding me ammunition against my own family. But who? And why did it feel like every secret was only the first crack before the whole house caved in? Morning broke gray and wet over Lake Washington. I barely slept, my phone heavy on the nightstand like a bomb waiting to go off. At 8 sharp, Thomas escorted me to the study, where Dorothy sat behind her vast mahogany desk. Beside her was a tall man in an immaculate suit, leather briefcase at his feet. Rachel, Dorothy said, her voice calm but faint. This is Walter, my attorney. Walter's handshake was firm, his expression grave. He opened his portfolio, spreading documents across the desk. Your grandmother has already filed the new will. The estate is secured, but now we go after what was taken from you. He tapped the stack of papers, bank records, adoption documents, misused trust funds. With interest, they owe you approximately $2.3 million. We'll file a civil suit today. The number jolted me. $2.3 million stolen while I'd scraped coins for rent. Walter continued, we must also prepare for their response. They'll argue undue influence, claim your grandmother isn't of sound mind. They'll try to paint you as manipulative. It's predictable, and we're ready for it. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A new text. Don't trust their tears. They'll turn on you in court. Be ready for Patricia's performance. My chest tightened. Whoever was sending these messages knew too much. That afternoon, Dorothy announced she was holding a press conference at her downtown office. They've controlled the story for 23 years, she said, her hands folded on the desk. Now the world will hear the truth. I wanted to protest. I wasn't ready for cameras, microphones, headlines, but Dorothy's gaze silenced me. Rachel, she said softly, the only weapon stronger than money is the truth. You'll speak it, and they'll finally see you. By 2 o'clock, the office was swarming with press. Camera crews jostled for space. Reporters whispered, the air electric with curiosity. Dorothy, frail but resolute, sat at the center of a long table. Walter flanked her. I sat on the other side, palms damp. The lights flicked on. Dorothy cleared her throat. Thank you for coming, she began, her voice carrying a steel edge despite her age. I want to address the lies surrounding my estate and my granddaughter Rachel. She laid it bare: decades of exclusion, mockery, abuse, the stolen adoption trust, the 3 separate doctors confirming her sound mind. She spoke with the clarity of someone who had nothing left to lose and everything left to protect. Then she gestured to me. Rachel has a few words. My heart thudded. Every lens pointed at me. Every reporter poised. I swallowed hard. I never wanted wealth, I began, my voice trembling. I never wanted headlines. I only ever wanted a family that treated me as one of their own. Instead, I was mocked, sidelined, and robbed, not just of money, but of belonging. I looked straight into the cameras. If I am here today, it is because I will not be silent anymore. Not for them, not for anyone. The room buzzed as reporters shouted questions, but before Walter could end the conference, the doors slammed open. Victoria stormed in. Her makeup was smeared, her hair wild, her designer dress wrinkled. She pointed at me with shaking hands. "She brainwashed you all," she screamed. "That adopted brat has stolen everything from us." Flashes exploded as cameras pivoted toward her meltdown. Reporters scribbled furiously. Dorothy's lips curled in the faintest smile. "Victoria," one journalist called out, "what about the allegation that your parents spent the $750,000 trust left for Rachel?" And then it happened. Victoria snapped. "Of course we spent it. We earned that money raising her ungrateful ass." The room gasped. Microphones surged forward. Reporters repeated the words like a chorus. "We earned that money." Dorothy squeezed my hand under the table. "She's just destroyed herself," she whispered. The cameras kept rolling as security dragged Victoria out, still shrieking, still damning herself with every word. But deep in my chest, alongside the adrenaline, something darker stirred. Because if the press knew about the trust, if strangers were emailing me details, then someone besides Dorothy had been feeding information. And the real question wasn't what had just been revealed. It was, what else was still buried? The courthouse was a fortress that morning, swarming with cameras, protesters, and reporters clutching microphones. Signs lined the sidewalks, some painted with "Justice for Rachel," others with "Gold Digger." The air buzzed with anticipation, like everyone knew they were about to witness an execution, and my family was walking in blindfolded. Thomas guided Dorothy's wheelchair through the side entrance, Walter striding beside us with his case files tucked neatly under one arm. My heart hammered so loud I thought it would echo against the marble walls. Inside, my family was already seated at the defendant's table. Patricia wore soft pastels, a calculated attempt at maternal innocence. Gregory's tie was crooked, sweat glistening on his forehead. Kenneth looked hollow, eyes ringed with sleeplessness. And Victoria, her fury hadn't cooled since the press conference. She glared at me with such hatred, I almost felt it scorch my skin. The judge entered, a woman with iron gray hair and eyes that seemed to cut through lies like glass. "This is a hearing regarding the will of Dorothy Hayes and the contest filed by Patricia Hayes and family," she announced. Their lawyer went first, weaving a story of undue influence and failing health. He gestured toward Dorothy, painting her as a confused, manipulated old woman swayed by the adopted girl she'd always pitied. His words slithered through the courtroom like poison, but the judge's expression never changed. Then it was Walter's turn. He didn't embellish, he didn't argue, he simply laid out the truth. He produced bank records of the $750,000 trust meant for me. Every cent siphoned away for vacations, private schools, and luxury cars. He presented medical evaluations from 3 doctors confirming Dorothy's sharp mind. He showed emails, texts, witness statements documenting decades of abuse. And finally, he played the video of Victoria's meltdown at the press conference. The courtroom screens lit up with her screaming face, her voice shrill. "Of course we spent it. We earned that money raising her ungrateful ass." The jury of public opinion wasn't even needed. The words were a confession that couldn't be unsaid. Patricia sobbed silently. Kenneth buried his face in his hands. Gregory's jaw tightened like stone. Victoria sat frozen, her mouth working silently, realizing she'd become her own executioner. The judge leaned forward. "The evidence is overwhelming," she said, her tone flat, final. "The contest is dismissed. The will stands as executed. Rachel Hayes is the rightful heir." She wasn't finished. Furthermore, Patricia and Gregory Hayes are ordered to pay restitution of $2.3 million for misappropriation of trust funds. Payment due within 90 days. Failure will result in seizure of assets. The gavel struck once, sharp, merciless. Chaos erupted. Patricia collapsed against Gregory, sobbing. Kenneth whispered furiously to their lawyer. And Victoria. Victoria exploded, hurling insults at me until security hauled her out screaming, her voice echoing down the hallway. I sat perfectly still, Dorothy's fragile hand in mine. My heart was pounding, but I didn't let it show. For once, I was the calm in the storm, not the storm's victim. Outside, reporters shouted questions as Thomas wheeled Dorothy past them. Flashbulbs exploded, voices begged for sound bites. How do you feel? What will you do with the fortune? Do you have a message for your family? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The silence was my power now. Weeks later, the fallout was complete. Gregory was indicted on fraud charges. Patricia lost everything: her house, her cars, her carefully curated image. Kenneth's marriage crumbled under the weight of financial ruin. And Victoria? She became a walking cautionary tale. Her meltdown replayed endlessly online. Her name a punchline for greed. But my revenge wasn't their destruction. Not really. It was what I built from it. 6 months after Dorothy's passing, the Dorothy Hayes Foundation for Adopted Children opened its doors in downtown Seattle. Its mission: to give children like me the protection, education, and love I never had. On opening day, sunlight streamed through glass walls as kids laughed in the courtyard. Reporters gathered again, but this time the story wasn't scandal, it was hope. I stood on the steps, speaking into the microphones, my voice steady. This foundation is Dorothy's true legacy, and mine. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't watching those who hurt you fall, it's rising so high they can never reach you again. That night, I stood alone on the balcony of Dorothy's estate, looking out over Lake Washington. The water shimmered with city lights, the same way it had on the night everything changed. My phone buzzed with a new message, another desperate attempt from Kenneth, begging for help. I deleted it without replying. Then I raised a glass of wine to the sky, whispering into the night. Thank you, Grandma, for seeing me when no one else would. The wind carried the words across the lake, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. I felt unstoppable.